All right, so it's 5:35, so I think we can get started. Hi, everyone. My name is David, and I'm one of the event coordinators here at SFU Surge. Thank you so much for coming to today's pre-hack workshop Create 101, hosted by the wonderful Michelle. Today we'll be going over Figma. But before we get started, just a few things. Number one, this workshop is being recorded, um, as with all of our other workshops. We had one previously on Git and GitHub. It's not up yet, but we'll be posting about that on our socials, and it'll be going up on Surge's YouTube channel in the not too distant future. Same with this one. Um, and tomorrow, I think Michelle mentioned, we have another workshop, Intro to Web Development, which our exec Ali is doing, and that's going to be a really great one, very useful for the hackathon. Um, and for all those people who are here for the hackathon, we're going to have a pre-hack launch for anybody who doesn't have a team yet. It's going to be an icebreaker prior to the actual hackathon, and that's on February 19th. So if you don't have a team for the hackathon and are looking for people to do it with, that would be a great event to attend. But without further ado, Michelle, you can take it away.
Yay. Um, Hello. Um, Welcome to Create 101. I'm Michelle, as David said. Um, I am a fifth year design student. I work as a product designer and web developer at Gusto, which is a Vancouver startup. I'm also the marketing director of SFU Surge, and I'm a 7-time hackathon participant. Ooh, there we go. Um, so what is design? We know that we use Figma to design apps and things of the like. So I have summarized design as it is the process of ideating and creating objects, spaces, and services to solve problems. These problems are often one or a combination of business problems, people problems, and world problems. Figma is the tool that I will be teaching today in order to design interfaces for web and mobile. It is the Google Docs of design, and it's a browser-based design tool that allows you to collaborate with others in real time and is backed by a community of creatives that aims to make design more accessible. So there are 4 kind of key tools that you will need to design in Figma, and you'll be using them in this workshop. So if you haven't opened Figma, could be good if you open it. Yes. So the first tool is the Move tool. It is here in the top left of the window. It is this arrow, and you can also access it by hitting K. And then it lets you move around Figma and select like different elements on the screen. And then the next tool is the Frame tool. So this creates an artboard, and the artboard is kind of like the canvas or the size of the screen that you want to create for. And then the third tool is the Shape tool. And then this tool lets you create various shapes because there's a drop-down menu, but the default one at the top is a rectangle, and that's the one you're probably going to use the most because you don't really see a lot of stars in interfaces. And then the last tool is the text tool. It lets you create a text box, which is very similar to Microsoft Word, Google Docs, of that sort. Yeah. So how would you make components for apps using these tools? So it's pretty easy combination. For example, we have the shape tool, which is accessed by R, plus the text tool, which is T. And if you layer them on top of each other, get a button. And that's kind of the basics of how you put different things together to make screens. So if we look at this example login screen here, what kind of tools do you think are used to make this screen? Now I gotta find the chat. I see the chat now. Ooh. Shape, text, rectangular boxes. You would be correct. Nice. Anyone else have any other suggestions? Images, nice. So if you have a Figma open, cool. If you don't have Figma open yet, feel free to work on it. Or you can tell me some things to do in the chat while we try and create a login screen together. So I'm gonna switch to a new tab. So we're gonna start by creating a login screen. So we start with a frame. And then if you see over here on the right, there are different preset options for the size of frames to match different devices. So which phone should we design for today? Anyone? iPhone 8. 8 Plus is another great option. Cool. All right. So what app should we make today? What should we be logging into? Is it like a to-do list app, a social media app, a photography app? Anyone got any suggestions? A bank account app, maybe. Dating app. Food delivery sounds fun. Nice. All right. So the first step on how we can go about creating a login screen for a bank app. That was the, oh wait, food delivery was first. I will go with that one. Is to figure out what we need on the login screen. Login screen for a food delivery app. So if you reference other apps that are out there, what do you need on a login screen for a food delivery app? Password and email. Email, password. Nice. Is there anything else we might need on a page for a login app or for a login for a food delivery app? There's a background with nice food. Gotcha. Any other suggestions? So what's cool about design? Oh, a logo of the app, that's good too. So what's cool about design is that a lot of these things are standard to either the iOS or the phone, or sometimes they're also just standard to like different kind of app best practices. So for example, every app you think of has an email input and a password input and a submit button. So because of the community behind Figma, we can get what is called a UI kit, which has pre-made buttons and inputs made that you are able to use for your personal projects. So for this example, I'm going to take the components from this UI kit. You can find the UI kits in the Figma community section of Figma. It is on the main screen over here where it says community beta, and then you're able to search for what you need and you are able to use them for your personal projects. If anyone has any questions or if I'm going too fast, feel free to just let me know and I can help out. So for the login screen, I'm going to take the email, the password, and the login button. I'm going to put them on our screen. Here we go. Password. Where is the community tab? So on the main screen of Figma, there's like a sidebar here on the left. That's kind of before you go into a file. There's this world icon. It says community, and that's where the community tab is. So it's kind of outside where you design everything. All right. So now we have an email, a password, and a login button. Do you think that our food app should use the color green? Or do you guys think it should use a different color? Different color. Cool. What color do you think it should be? Teal. All right. Yeah, there we go. I'll make this teal too. Ta-da. So we got our email and we got our password. Now we want a background with food. I'll go get a background with food. Ooh. What kind of food should be on our background? Cake. I like cake. Alrighty. We have cake. Sure. So when you get a UI kit from the Figma community, you'll have this duplicate option here, and it will duplicate a copy of the community file into your files. So it'll open a new tab and it will have like all of the components in it. And then you can take what you want by selecting them all. You can hold shift and then select, or you can drag and select. And then it's a copy paste. So Control Command C, and then Control Command V in your own file, and they will appear there. Alrighty, back to this cake. No problem. Put this cake in the background. All right, we have a cake in the background. However, the image may be a little bit too strong. So let us try and reduce the opacity. How can we have multiple drafts as the tabs on top? What do you use prototype for? Fun. So on the top, you have different files. These are like different Figma files that I have open, not necessarily the drafts, but the thing about Figma is that you can basically use all of the space in each file that you have. So if you want to make multiple drafts, you can just like copy and paste what you have and just keep editing, and you will hopefully find the design that you want. Um, so now we need a logo. So we're going to put a logo here. What should the logo of our food company be? Baskin Robbins. I think that's already a food company. Anyone else got a suggestion for a logo? Let's try something basic. There we go. All right. I will add a circle. Add a circle here. This is where our logo will go. Right now it will be a circle. Yeah. So we've successfully put a screen together. Nice job. Do you think that the screen is missing something? How can we add interactivity? That's a good question. All right. I guess I can talk about prototyping. So interactivity can be done through the prototyping option of Figma. You find it in the top right tab next to design here. And then when you select to go into the prototype mode, the thing you have selected will have this circle here. And this is where you can add like your point of interactivity. So because I have the frame selected, it will have a dot for the frame. And if I like select the button, then the interactivity point will happen on the button. So in this example, when we log in, we want to go to the main page. So if we pretend that this blank page is the main page, we can drag this node here to the next page, and then Figma will automatically pull out this interaction details to tell you like how the interaction is going to play out. So there's a lot of options here: on tap, on drag, while hovering, while pressing. So I'm just gonna leave it on tap. And then it says, and you've got some options here for what it's going to do. So we want it to navigate to the main page. So we're gonna leave it here. And then this is the name of the main page at the moment. And then you can also change the animation. So you've got some dissolve, smart animate, move in, move out, different options like that. Very similar to PowerPoint in a weird way. We're gonna leave it on instant because that makes the most sense. So now you have these connected. You can go into prototype mode to see how these are connected. If I hit play, nope, that's my slides. Take these over. Now it should work if I hit play. So now we have our login screen. And then if you click the login button, then it will go to this blank page, which is the main page. And this is how people are able to interact with your prototypes. You can send this to them so that they will see only the prototype and not all the design work you did. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then another cool part is with this inspect tab. So this inspect tab is for the real-time collaboration with developers, and that's very useful. So what happens in this inspect tab is that when a developer comes in and they want to see the size of a button, they can click on the button, and then down here it will tell them the CSS of the button. And I think that's very useful for them. Yeah. So if anyone's been, if anyone's been playing around in Figma and you wanna like show people what you made, feel free to let me know. You can post it in the Surge Discord, or you can DM me. I'm Michelle on Discord too. But if no one has, that's okay too. In the meantime, does anyone think that this app is missing something? Possibly a name. Alright. I'm gonna throw in a name because I feel like most apps tend to have names. How do you create a flyer? It's a very similar process. You would just choose a frame of a different size, like probably a paper size, like A4 or letter. Yeah, you can use Figma for a lot of things. It's very powerful. All of the Surge graphics are made on Figma. So if you came here through our social medias, you saw a bunch of Figma graphics. The Stormhacks website was designed in Figma and then developed by our dev team. So there's definitely a lot of powerful things you can do with Figma. Oh, that's another frame. Anyone else got any questions? What should we call this app? Food delivery? Grubby Hubby? That seems almost copywritten. Copyrighted? Almost copyrighted. Grubby Hubby. Food delivery. Yeah. So this was a short tutorial on the basics of how to put different tools together to make your first screen of an application. Does Figma do good to revamp an existing app or something? Yeah, you can also like redesign existing apps in Figma if you want to. I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah. The Does anyone have any suggestions of what might go on the next screen? You can. If you design something in Figma, you are free to redesign it as however you want. And if you want to redesign a current app, that's your prerogative as well. If no one has any more suggestions for this short tutorial on how to use Figma to design interfaces for mobile, I might move into the second half of the workshop, which is how I design at hackathons, if that sounds like a plan. Can I get a thumbs up or a react? Nice. Cool. Alrighty. Alrighty. So at a hackathon, ooh, how much time do you spend designing during hackathons during a time crunch? It's a good question. Design is often like much compiled into the front half of the hackathon for a number of reasons, but more or less because you also gotta give the developers the stuff that they need to start coding, since they're also on a time crunch. But this next part of the workshop shall go over like my process and how I design at hackathons. So the kind of key strategy here on how to design at hackathons is to balance. Hello. Is about balance, because during the start of the hackathon, your team wants to come up with a good idea. The developers on your team want to code as fast as possible because they're also on a time crunch, and you want to complete a design process so that you can add it to your portfolio. Those are kind of like the three elements that you have to balance in order to design successfully and not have a team get mad at you. But yeah, let's try and address some of these pieces of the puzzle using one of my past projects that I did for NW Hacks 2020. So the first kind of area is that your team wants to come up with good ideas. So a key point here is to ask people about your ideas. So our app Rebuild was created based on the experiences of one of my teammates, because he had experiences in an earthquake, and not many people at a hackathon may have experiences in an earthquake, but Google, it's good stand-in for a person when that is the case. But if your app is more widely applicable to a lot of students or young adults or the demographic that appear at hackathons, it's good to go talk to people, because they're definitely down to answer your questions, especially like mentors or other participants. Yeah, so this part is about talking about how we kind of came up with the app concept. So because it was based on experience with earthquakes, you would think, oh, we're going to try and make an app that solves earthquakes. But obviously, we cannot create an app that solves earthquakes. So through talking to people or researching, whatever you would like to do in this step, you will be able to kind of pull apart the problem a little bit and try and find an area which you can address with an app or a digital or a hardware solution that you can create during the hackathon. For example, in this situation, our app is not about stopping earthquakes, but it's about addressing how people communicate after earthquakes or a natural disaster. So that might be a bit of an extreme example. So I've put together this simpler example to kind of show how we may break down a larger problem into smaller problems. So for example, you go around at the hackathon and you learn that people have trouble remembering to make sandwiches for their lunches. So that's a pretty specific problem, but it has a lot of different areas. For example, there's like a lot of questions. There's some questions here that you might be thinking of when you hear that they have this problem. For example, do they need a reminder to make their lunch? Do they forget their sandwiches in the fridge? Are they tired of sandwiches and need different recipes? Or do they often not have the ingredients for their sandwiches? So if you look at these questions, you can kind of see how each question might be leading to a different app or website or solution. So if anyone has a thought on what app you could create for someone who needs a reminder to make their lunch, feel free to share. What kind of solution might help people make a reminder or get a reminder to make their lunch? Do they need a reminder app, a notification app? Yeah. Do they need a notification app, an app that schedules notifications for them to make their lunch? That is totally possible. So for the next question, if they forget their sandwiches in the fridge, what could we make? Oh, there we go. Beyond a simple alarm app, we might make an app that displays a list of tasks. Yeah, that's cool too. There's a lot of different for each of these questions. That's okay. For each of these questions, are different apps that you can make. So a reminder app for people to remind them to make their lunch is a very different app than one that tells them the ingredients they need to make a sandwich. And it's also different than if they don't want to make sandwiches at all. So this is just a simple example of how one may break down a bigger problem into a smaller problem that allows you to create more effective solutions in a short period of time. So the next section is about how the developers on your team want to code as soon as possible. Like someone said earlier, hackathons are very much a time crunch. So your team will want to code as quickly as possible. So sometimes you don't have a lot of time to design, and especially to get to a final project or final fidelity or quality. So the key to communicating your ideas quickly is to sketch. So if you see down here, this image, this was me sketching Rebuild during the hackathon very quickly, getting the general ideas out, writing ideas that the other people on the team were talking about. And yeah, so as you can see here, it's not meant to be pretty. It's very not pretty, in fact. But it does get across what the idea is or what the ideas are. For example, you can see here I wrote that we wanted a splash screen and then an onboarding and then a map screen and then an add marker screen. But then there's also a section over here where we have the colors that people were suggesting, or a screen with the menu, as you can see with this circle and line situation. Yeah. And then after sketching, you can even provide developers wireframes, which take the ideas on the paper that you like the best and turn them into something simple that the devs can work off of while you keep working on quality and refining what your ideas are for the application. So for example, for this app from NWHacks, this was kind of the wireframes I had for the developers. As you can see, they are gray and they make a lot of use of the rectangle tool and the text tool and are very simple. So that's kind of at this point. Oh, so would this involve figuring out interactions in Figma? Yeah, you can figure out interactions in Figma here. So you can share with your devs, or there are some that are very kind of implied. For example, the splash screen to the main screen is very much like a delayed load and then show the next screen. So you can either prototype this or you can communicate with the devs on your team. And yeah, it's definitely a lot of back and forth. It's definitely a lot of back and forth between the devs and you at this point, because they want to code quickly and you need to design quickly. But yeah, so it's everything at the same time. So this is kind of what the wireframes look like. And then once you have your wireframes, your devs are probably working on the functionality and you can focus on the colorful stuff. This part is kind of what a lot of people think that designers do, that it's just kind of the colorful part. But as you can see from the first half of this presentation, there was a lot of thinking up to get to this part. But yeah, once you have the gray boxes, your devs can work off that and you can keep focusing on refining. And then this is where UI kits come in that we showed earlier from the Figma community tab. This picture here next to Sparky shows what it looks like when you search UI kit. And then these are like different examples you can take for your application during the hackathon. Next slide. So this is what the final app ended up looking like for NWHacks 2020. As we can see, most of it stayed pretty consistent from the beginning. We have a splash screen, an onboarding screen, then we have a map screen, and then we have this add a marker screen, because this app was a way for people to communicate the location of resources without the use of Wi-Fi. I cannot answer how that works functionally, but dev can. But this is what I ended up making. And then the last one is that you want to complete a process for a portfolio. The thing is, we already walked through a process. As you can see, the process looks very scribbly, especially when you're thinking about your ideas and everyone's trying to talk to you all at the same time and you're trying to figure out what the app's going to look like and if like people really like your app or anything. So it's kind of confusing at that time. But once you like start to figure out what it might look like in a sketch and then what it might look like in a wireframe, the kind of scribbliness starts to die down, and then you can focus more on executing an app from beginning to end. So as we can see, the hackathon design process here, it's part of its research, which is asking people or asking Google if people might not work, and generating ideas, which is sketching and the wireframing, and then refining the result, which is creating the mockups. This is very different than the typical design process that one might go through outside of a hackathon. So if you are a designer at an internship or at a part-time job or a volunteer job, that one looks more like this. This is kind of what Google says it looks like, but this covers all the steps, but it's very circular as well, very iterative, very very loopy. Yeah, but these are, as you can see, there's very similar steps though. So it's just kind of condensing it all so it fits within a short period of time. And then actually I use this process to put Rebuild on my own portfolio, which you can find on the internet. And I can link you if you are interested in looking at my portfolio. It kind of looks like this at the start, and there will be more content. But yeah, my portfolio follows that structure pretty well. And it's a good example of following a structure in a short period of time. And the good thing about portfolios is that you can always go back and continue to refine your projects. So if you wanted to go back and visit your hackathon projects in the future and add more research or add things like a persona, which is like an ideal user for your application, or a user journey, which is kind of a document which shows like how a person would use your application and like what scenario. You can add all this stuff after to make your project even more representative of your process and make it more appealing to people who look at your portfolio. Yay, someone's interested. And yeah, I didn't know this workshop was gonna take 50 minutes, but that is kind of the end of my hackathon design talk and my small tutorial in Figma. We have Dev 101 tomorrow. We have React 201 next week, and Dev 101M for Android/mobile. Up weeks, and connect with us on Instagram or our social media to keep up to date with all that. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask because I ended early. So there's lots of time for that. And if there is none, but though, Stormhacks is February 20 to 21. Can I link my portfolio? Yes. My portfolio.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Just one thing I want to add also is everybody who applied to the hackathon should be receiving emails on February 5th regarding acceptance. So just be looking out for those. And you can find the recording on YouTube. We'll be posting it later. And information about that will be on our socials as well.
Yeah. If anyone has questions, I'll be here. If not, applications for Stormhacks next week. Looking forward to see you guys design stuff at the hackathon. And yeah.
Just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for coming.